As Bruce said, today we're going to talk about the top scams happening right now, the top three: Social Security scams, text scams, and scams that are powered by artificial intelligence. So let's dive in. So, given the headlines over the past few months, I think it's true that we're likely worried, or at least somewhat concerned, about Social Security. AARP members and older Americans nationwide consistently say that the future of Social Security and Medicare are the issues that they care about the most. Unfortunately, the fraudsters know this as well. There are now several Social Security scams that are targeting individuals, impersonation scams, fake emails claiming that you're eligible for more benefits or that your account has errors. There could be threats of legal action. You're going to be arrested. And one of my favorite that I hadn't heard of before is the scammers offering a security update tool pretending to be from Social Security that's going to protect your device from scams. You're getting it from a scammer, but it can actually harm your computer. So these are pretty typical, and I think we probably hear about them more and more, but there are more now. And now the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General has issued a warning to the public of a new scam tactic. This is our number one tactic by criminals trying to lure potential retirement applicants to their fraudulent website. So this recent scam email, it appears to be from the Social Security Administration, and it has the subject line, claim benefits, with an exclamation point, and it says, important. Apply for your Social Security benefits starting in 2025. But the link within the phony email, it's sneaky. It's disguised as the Social Security's official website, ssa.gov or socialsecurity.gov. But if you click the link, you're redirected to that fraudulent site. It's not from Social Security. So if you get this email, even if you're already on Social Security, if you get this email, look at the from address, and you'll see that the email is from Social Administration, and it reflects a personal email address. The end of that email address should be .gov if it's really from Social Security. However, this is a personal email address. If you get it, delete it. So, how else could you protect yourself if you get one of these suspicious emails or this new email we're being warned about? Verify the source using a separate resource that you trust. Is it really from Social Security? Of course, what do we always say? Don't click on links or download software. And of course, don't share your personal information. That kind of goes without saying, but boy, it's hard sometimes. And of course, if you get this scam or any suspicious scams, report it to the Office of the Inspector General at Social Security or your law enforcement. You're going to get a link after this session that's going to direct you to that website for the Office of the Inspector General to where you can report these fake emails. So number 2 on our list, phony text messages. These are exploding. Fake text messages, also known as smishing scams, aim to trick recipients into revealing personal information or clicking on malicious links. It's kind of just like most online scams, right? But according to the new research conducted just this month by a company called Malwarebytes, 44% of the people that they survey said that they encountered a mobile text scam every single day. This is exploding. 78% of those people said that they get these text scams at least weekly. And so we know there's lots of popular ongoing text scams that we hear about and that we talk about regularly. The fake delivery text messages, bank fraud warnings that ask you to move money or to verify a transaction. We've probably heard of those. They're very common, but there's two specific text scams that I really want you to watch out for. The first being a message that appears to have been sent to the wrong number. Scammers are going to text with a simple hi, or it might be a message to arrange or confirm an appointment or a meeting with someone, not you. It looks like an error. I've gotten several of these just recently that say, sorry, I missed you, text or call me back. I have no idea who they're from. It's from a scammer. If you text back, they're going to start and want to continue a conversation with you. They're likely trying to lure you into a romance scam or a cryptocurrency scam, an investment scam, because these schemes are often combined. The second text scam that I want you to watch out for now is pretty familiar, but of course, that just means that the brand new version is getting more sophisticated. The fake text scam from the Department of Motor Vehicles saying you have unpaid tolls has been around now nationwide for
Oh, yeah.
we're
I
probably
got that.
we're probably all likely aware of this scam. But according to Forbes, there's been a significant decline in these scams recently, especially around March and April of this year. But they're being replaced with a more sophisticated DMV text scam. They're longer messages. They're now tailored to each of your individual states, and they're also more threatening. The new DMV text scam claim that you have an outstanding traffic violation fine that needs to be paid. And they threaten to suspend your vehicle and your license registrations, and even to enforce driving bans if you don't pay. There's threats of prosecution, heavy fines, and even damage to your credit score if you don't pay. And the link that's in this text supposedly opens a payment website for your state's specific Department of Motor Vehicles. Of course, you're not going to go to your state's DMV. You're going to go to the fraudulent site. It's very targeted. And like the previous DMV scam with the tolls, it started on the East Coast, and reports now show it working across the country. So we should start seeing it soon, unfortunately, if not already. So to protect ourselves from this scam, something that we really should be doing with all of these text messages that are suspicious. And sometimes it's hard to do. And that's to take a minute and really examine it. Really look at the domain extension. That's the end of the link email address, or the link website address, rather. It should be .gov if it's really from the Department of Motor Vehicles. But instead, it's going to be a .cc, .icu, or even .vip. You'd likely see the name or the abbreviation of your state followed by one of these extensions. So you would know for sure it's a scam. Delete it. What else should we be doing? Make sure your cell phone mobile service has a spam filter. Most do now. You can also get scam blocking services for a small monthly fee if you choose. And of course, don't reply. Even if the message says, you can text stop to avoid these messages. All you're going to do is tell the scammer that your number is active and it can be sold to other bad actors, other scammers. Of course, never click on links in suspicious texts. And remember that phone numbers where the texts are coming from, they can be spoofed. So, sometimes we get asked, I get these texts that are obvious scams, but I don't know how to report them. You can report these scam texts to your carrier so they can investigate, and then they help block similar messages for all their customers. You open the scam text, you long press on the message, not the link, don't tap, press it and hold it, and an options box is going to pop up. Press forward on that options box and then type 7726 in the recipient field and hit send. You're sending that scam text to your carrier, identifying it as potential scam. And then your carrier might ask for the number that sent the scam, so be ready to provide that, jot it down. But you get the idea. You can report scam texts. And of course, reporting it to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov. Pardon me. Okay, number 3. Finally, let's talk about scams that are powered by artificial intelligence. The credit reporting agency Experian, which you're probably familiar with, lists artificial intelligence as the #1 fraud issue for 2025. And that's even above imposter scams, romance scams, and phone scams. AARP Online has AI near the top of their list as well, because we know that AR-driven tactics, such as creating deepfake videos or photos, voice cloning, or chatbots, AI impacts nearly every fraud that's taking place right now. It offers the fraudsters, scammers, unparalleled tools to allow them to amplify the scale and the effectiveness of their threats. So, what do we look out for with AI? Well, some current examples of this AI generated and enhanced content. And I can tell you that romance scams are right now at the top of the list as an example of what's being done with AI. Let me give you a couple of examples. A Chicago man lost almost $60,000 in a cryptocurrency investment scheme that was pitched to him in person by a romance scammer who communicated with him through what authorities believe was a deep fake video. He wasn't talking to a real person. He thought he was getting investment help from the love of his life. In another case, a video shows a fully automated AI chatbot communicating directly, I mean face-to-face on screen, with a victim. And the victim believed that she was talking with her love interest, a military doctor that was based overseas. In reality, she was talking to a chatbot controlled by the scammer. The chatbots in these examples can give the scammer the ability to converse fluently with the victim online without an accent, to build the believability of the scam. You think you're looking at a person having a conversation, but it's a chatbot. And experts warn that the use of these fully autonomous AI chatbots will proliferate in 2025, this year. They're already being used. Another AI enhanced scam that really is tied for #1 with romance scams is investment scams. So, get my phone. Imagine a wall of mobile phones automatically chatting with thousands of people on Instagram, scamming thousands of victims around the world every minute. It's a new technique that's been publicized in recent months that's now being used by scam compounds in other countries, boiler rooms, to scale up their operations using cell phones and artificial intelligence. They're using AI-powered scam bots to use software to blast messages to thousands of people to ensnare them into investment scams. One of the especially popular messages that are going out that we need to watch for when we get texts and emails, it says, "Hi there. My friend recommended you. How are you? I have some great information. Can we talk?" Sounds like our text message scam that we mentioned earlier, doesn't it? But keep in mind, this message is going out over and over again to thousands of people looking for just one small percentage of response to turn into victims. And keep in mind, very quickly, I want to let you know that the Attorney General of New York just issued an alert for another AI approach for investment scams. Scammers using deepfake videos that are created, of course, with AI, but they show celebrities, business leaders touting fraudulent investment schemes. And this is becoming very, very popular right now. And they appear on social media, digital ads, messaging apps, and according to the Attorney General, they're spreading like wildfire. So again, what to watch out for. You know, AI programs are helping scammers boost the believability of their schemes and the scope for the number of people that they can approach at one time. But there's still some practical measures that we, average people, can take. And the first, of course, is something that we talk about a lot here on Fraud Watch Friday, being wary of unexpected text, emails, calls that especially create urgency or pressure. You know, if a family member calls urgently claiming they've been kidnapped, they're in danger or injured, ask personal questions that only they would know, even if it sounds just like them. Remember that voices can be cloned and AI chatbots can speak for them. Experts also recommend, and AARP does too, establishing a safe word with your family members. And if all else fails, hang up the phone, call them back. And if you've responded to a message and now you find yourself on kind of a strange Zoom or a FaceTime video call that you're starting to be suspicious about because you suspect it might be a chatbot or a deepfake, ask the person to stand up or wave a hand. If the video kind of glitches, it's either a poorly made deepfake or it's a sign that something is wrong. So again, listen to that voice in the back of your head. Don't trust your caller ID. Pause before you click on any links. And of course, don't click on any ads to download software. So these protection steps, they sound kind of familiar probably if you've joined us in the past on Fraud Watch Friday. But keep in mind that the same steps that you take to guard against all scams are valid, whether artificial intelligence is involved or not. As I said, AI makes scammers more efficient and more believable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the scams themselves have changed. And finally, to close, report the scams regardless of what type, or even if you're not sure that you've been scammed. Report to the police, the Federal Trade Commission. I think Bruce put their reporting website in the chat. The more information that authorities have, the better they can identify patterns, link cases, and ultimately, they actually do work across jurisdiction to try to catch the criminals. Of course, go to the AARP Fraud Watch hotline, 1-877-908-3360, to talk about your situation and get some advice in terms of what to do next. So we talked a lot about Social Security, text, AI-powered scams. It's a lot to think about, but we know that if we educate ourselves and share what we've learned, we're going a long way to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And you know, I was actually going to close right here, but I do want to let you know about a news story, talk about current scams, that I just got this morning. And that is a major data breach for the insurance company AFLAC. They've just announced it this morning and have said that uh, potentially Social Security numbers, insurance claims, and medical information is potentially at risk and has been lost. And actually, the authorities have already identified a group of young people known as Scattered Spider, sorry, is the group that is behind this attack. And according to AFLAC, there was no ransomware. It continues to operate and serve its customers. But again, and this goes back to some of the things that we always tell folks, the hackers supposedly used social engineering to worm their way into the network, and this is according to AFLAC, and that the tactic was reliant on duping someone within AFLAC to reveal security information that helped them gain access to the network. Again, somebody responded to an email, a text, clicked on a link, answered some questions that were probably pretty darn authentic and believable. But again, no ransomware, but a lot of information was lost. And so we're probably going to hear a lot more about this in the coming days and weeks. So if you're an AFLAC customer, just be aware. Go in. I would recommend changing your passwords and getting that taken care of, and really watching and being suspicious of your email and text traffic. So Bruce, that's my 25 cents worth for today. And so what questions do we have?
Well, I've got a question that's inspired by Ronald's comment, which I think is a good one, and sort of goes to why we do these Fraud Watch Friday events each month, because the fraudsters move fast and they come up with techniques that are tough to combat. And what we try to do is come up with techniques and best practices that are often kind of old school, common sense kind of knowledge, to use our human knowledge to kind of outwit the AI scams. But Ronald says, I never click a link or text in an email. No, sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of reading. I never click a link in a text or email message. Always go to the actual website. And that's just a good bit of advice. And Kay, could you expand a little bit about why that is so important?
It's very important, even if the email or the text that you have is actually authentic. The hard part is that it's hard to know, is this real or is this a scam? Because we know with artificial intelligence, an email that we get with photos, logos of companies, text, pictures of websites can be so authentic. And even if we click on a link and go to a website, it can look authentic, like, hey, we're in the right place. I feel good. We just don't know. And it's unfortunate in my mind that we have to be so suspicious of everything that we get, but it's worthwhile. I know when I get an email and it's something that I'm actually kind of interested in or that I know about, unless I recognize the from email address and I really look at it and understand that, yep, that's really from this company, this person. I just bought something from that company, and now this is them responding to my email below, so to speak. I will go in my and open another tab in my browser and just do a search. If it's somebody I'm not familiar with, I'll do a search on their name followed by the word scam and see what comes up. If it's a text, I'll do the same thing. I'll go into my computer and the name followed by scam, or I'll just enter the phone number that it's from. And I'll really look at, especially, and Andy, I see that you're on the call with us, and I was going to look at this ahead of time and I ran out of time, but I think that there's something that we really need to share with folks. And I wanted to do it now, but like I said, I ran out of time. And that's looking at the domain and the extensions of emails as a way to tell if this is fake or not. Could you talk a little bit about this? I know you had an example for a PowerPoint, and I think it would be helpful for folks.
Sure, and I'll pull up an example later. Basically, one of the techniques that's used by scammers is to make a HTML look legitimate. And I'll just in the comment, I'll sort of type in one there where you'd have an https://mass.gov or, toll booths at mass.gov dot something or other, official. In fact, this is pretty close to one of the ones I got, .info/ and then a whole bunch of stuff there. And what you're really looking for is the first single slash and then back up from it. The .info is what's called the top level domain. What you're looking for, if it's SSA, IRS, police, anybody, would be .gov/. If it's anything other than .gov/, get really, really suspicious. So the fact that mass.gov is in the link isn't what's important. What's important is right before the last slash, you've got a top level domain, which ought to be .gov if it's important, and then the main domain. In my little chat example, that's official. Everything before those first two is irrelevant. Everything after the first slash is irrelevant. It's those two pieces that matter. And if that is actually citibank.com, then it really is Citibank. If it's cittibank.com, then it's not. So anything that's got .info, .web, .xyz, in fact, XYZ is a valid top-level domain, it's almost guaranteed to be something you don't really want to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I need to enter it. Ha! How about that? Yeah, I can see it. What's your problem?
Okay.
Okay. Oh,
Thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, that helps a lot. So what we want to look at is mass.gov, everything before that first // right?
Everything before that first //
Okay.
right? So official.info is all you're going into garbage. You want to have it be mass.gov/. IRS.gov/, whatever that
Can
is.
he share his screen?
It's not showing up. Okay.
It's showing up in the chat.
Well, here.
You probably don't have a slide.
Put the chat on the screen, or you could.
Yeah.
He should share his screen.
Yeah, he does. I don't know that, Andy, you have an actual slide available to share at this point.
I will have one available in a few minutes. I gotta go.
Okay. Well, why don't we come back to that then? But that's a very relevant point. And oftentimes we have looked at emails where the return address looks completely valid, and then you dig into it as Andy has mentioned, and it's some random Outlook or Gmail address underneath. So it's very important to look at that. DM has a question that kind of ties into that, and it's always good to get a question from DM. He's got some good ones. I receive an email to renew annual report required by my Secretary of State, but the link to the annual report is .com to submit the report, not .gov. Don't know if this is a scam, but still fraudulent. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kay or Andy?
So would you say that again? I was looking over at the chat. Sounds like the request for um,
It was a request from the Secretary of State, but the link was .com, not .gov,
yeah,
which is kind
and
of
yeah,
suspicious.
yeah, that would be suspicious. On the other hand, if the Secretary of State was using a third party to gather this information, they should have said that in the email. So you would be aware of that. I would be suspicious that it would be going to a company rather than a .gov, the Secretary of State's office. And you can always check with the Secretary of State's office because you can call them and speak with someone to see if they're sending out and requesting that information from you.
Yeah, well, that's also a good point that follows up on the point about going to the website yourself and not clicking on links. It's very easy if you're in Washington State, for example, to go to the Washington's Secretary of State's website and
Right.
and check into it there.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and I would say, Bruce, that the Secretary of State here in Washington State has issued several warnings for small businesses in terms of scammers contacting them pretending to be from the Secretary of State or the Attorney General's office, but targeting small businesses for information about their business or problems that they need to resolve by paying money.
yeah. Well, it sounds like people really want a little bit of a demonstration on the
I'm
on
ready
the
for
oh, are you? Okay, because I was going to say that we could prepare that for next time. But if you have something to show us, Andy, would you like to go
yeah,
ahead?
allowed to share here.
All right.
I think Bruce has to share.
I think
I made you a co-host.
Oh, there you go.
you should see this slide,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, we're seeing
Okay.
that.
Okay, so
All right.
this is the top one here is actually from a spam I got. You know, the usual, gee, you haven't paid your toll booth. And it's
Yeah.
HTTPS colon, and for me it's masked because I have a 716 area code, strictly so that all the spams I know immediately are spam because I'm not in seven. I don't know anybody in Buffalo, New York. But it's mass.gov dash whatever that is .win/US. This was actually what was in the spam. And if you look at it, and I know you look at this red one down below, I don't know if you can see my mouse. What you're really looking for is that first single slash. Go to the left from that first single slash, you have the top level domain, TLD. Well, in this example here, the top level domain is .win. I have no idea what .win is, but it's not a government organization. And the next thing out between those first two dots is the domain itself. This would be SSA, IRS, whatever that organization is. It's these two that tell you everything. Everything in front of that is a subdomain. Who cares? It's something down in their network, whatever it is, it's noise. People will try to confuse you by putting in all kinds of stuff in the subdomain, like right here, mass.gov is actually a subdomain of, it's probably gov-etcoa, and mass is the subdomain, but whatever it is, it's not what you want to see. Everything after the slash is also noise. Those are just directories and subdirectories down some folder tree inside that site. So look for the first slash, find the top level domain, usually a 3-letter field, although country codes are 2-letter fields, so it's .us, .de, .fr, and then the first domain after that. And those are the only things that matter. Everything else is noise.
Okay.
Yes.
So like basically you're saying that where it says win in that email, it should say gov, and if it doesn't, then it's not a government domain. Even though they put mass.gov earlier, that's just a collection of text, really.
Yes.
But even so, like unless you hover over, it's hard to see that. It's better just to go to the website mass.gov and pose your question there or find a phone number to call there. It's always a risk to click on a link, no matter how solid it looks. But actually, there's a question. that kind of follows up on this that I think is a good one from Robertson. It says, what prevents a scammer from creating a .gov website?
Do you have that, Kay, or do I?
I guess I would think I'm more the fraud person as opposed to cyber person. Um,
Then
and
I'll handle that one.
I would think that, hey, with AI, I can do anything, but I don't know if that's true or not.
No, you cannot. So you can go
Okay.
to any place, you can go to various places where you can register for domains.
Right.
And you can register for a .com, a .net, a .info, a .win. You cannot get a .edu, and you cannot get a .gov.
Okay.
So those are both controlled. To be a .edu, you have to be an organization that is a accredited school. To be a .gov, I don't know how you do it, but Joe Schmo like me can't.
Got it.
So .gov is a controlled top-level domain.
Very good. And we can go ahead and send this slide out as an attachment to the survey that we send out after each session, to where you would have this and you could go ahead and print it out and share it with your family and friends and stuff. Just kind of as a reminder, because as we do get into some of the more technical stuff, sometimes it's hard to remember that, so it's nice to have a reference. And I would also like to say that in August, I am going to be away for most of the month, and Andy has graciously agreed to step in and be our Fraud Watch Friday focal point and host for our August session. So thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
You're going to be
Yes.
getting a lot of really good questions, and that's going to be on August 15th.
Yep. So obviously our topic there is going to be kind of the cyber end of things. So, if you have any suggestions for cyber topics that you'd like to know about, to put them in the chat perhaps, and we'll consider that for August. That's going to be a real opportunity to get into it. But here's a question from Signe. She asks, what are other bad email endings? Are there ones to watch out for, perhaps?
Well, we talked about the new text attack that has the like the .vip, the .ici or ic.cc, anything that looks unusual like that. You can always, if I saw something that I didn't immediately or that I didn't recognize, I would go to another session in my browser and do a search on that to see what it is.
Here's a question that Daryl has, which is, I think a lot of us have, that I just clicked on a link someone sent me. Is there any advice that you have? Does that ordinarily lead directly to problems, or is there something to wait and see? If you have clicked on a link that in hindsight you wish you hadn't?
Every once in a while, I'm sorry to admit that I have clicked on a link here and there because I looked at it and I thought it looked really good. And when it got to that site, I got this blaring message from my security on my browser saying, danger, danger, Will Robinson, don't go forward. Could be a dangerous site. And of course, I immediately shut everything down and do that. And that's happened on my cell phone once as well. And I tried to call a number back because I thought it was actually a company I was waiting for a call from, and I didn't check first. See, this is a do as I say, not as I do type of a scenario. I didn't check first, and it popped right up, potential spam, and it was in red letters. And so, of course, I didn't do that. And it turned out the number was correct. But again, make sure you keep your software, your programming, your updates for security updates on all of your devices up to date. Set them to automatically tell you this because they're going to update with the most recent security patches that are available. So set that to happen automatically on all of your devices. And if you do go and click on a link and go to a site you wish you hadn't, just get out of it right away. Run a security test on your device just to check to see if there's any problems, and change your password if you're really not sure. That's what I would do. I don't know. Andy, do you have any other recommendations if all of a sudden you're on a site and you think, what have I done?
Not a lot. Changing password if you for the legitimate site, absolutely. Presumably you already have different passwords for everything there is.
Yes.
So that shouldn't matter. If you don't, well, that would be the first step to do. Make sure everyone, because that way, when some particular site like AFLAC gets breached, you aren't at risk of having others. That said, any legitimate company will hash their passwords. So even though they gain personal records, they should not gain passwords from a breach. But there are some places that actually don't do that, which is remarkable in this day and age. The only other thing I would point out is another weak spot is what's called malvertising. And this week was a big announcement about Google, where when you click on the ad in a Google search, and I'm pretty sure the other browsers will have the same problem. When you make an ad, you can have it show one domain name and go to another domain name, which is already bad. But even worse, you can then put options in the back. And the malvertising in this Google was it put options in the back so it would go to the site that you wanted to go to and fill in other information for you. I don't yet understand how they used it, but just type in the site. Don't trust ads in any of the search engines, because they are doing some other things in there. And one, in order to collect revenue, but also they give an opportunity for a bad person to put in a ad that has bogus information in it that you don't see when you hover, which is an interesting problem.
Yeah, that sounds like a real threat. I guess I would say if you click on a text, probably you haven't done anything to hurt yourself, because probably not a lot of information has been transferred just by going to a site, but you should definitely be aware. If you get an invitation to get into a romance or transfer crypto or something from it, that's the point to cut that contact off. Yeah, you've made a mistake by opening that channel of communication, but you can close it again. Just don't engage with any contacts that you get back, for example. And probably you haven't done any actual harm. But it is smart to be alert. Be sure and check your online accounts and stuff to make sure they haven't been breached. But probably just going to a site by itself, and if you don't take any further action, you're probably not going to be hurt long term, I think. Eberhard asks, is there any way to stop the relentless texts soliciting political contributions? I don't know the answer to that. Do you know? I'd like to know myself.
The everlasting question. Well, if we always tell people, go ahead and sign up for the do not call list, because it will stop some legitimate calls. Doesn't do anything against the scammers, of course, they don't care. But unfortunately, signing up for the do not call list doesn't stop political calls. You're still going to get those, as well as the texts. I get a lot of texts, and there's really, most are legitimate, some are going to not be. So you can just delete them. You can, if they're really legitimate, blocking them might help, because you would like to think that political campaigns have a list of phone numbers in their districts that they would auto call, as opposed to scammers that have really, really large lists of numbers in algorithms everywhere, that if you block a number, it doesn't matter, it just goes down to the next number to call you from. So blocking doesn't matter. But, go ahead and block. If you think it's spam, you can mark it as spam. You can contact the candidate and ask to be taken off of their call list. If it's a local candidate and you have local elections coming up, And they will typically do that for you without any trouble because as a constituent, they want to try to make you happy.
Yeah, I think it's hard to stop political speech just for, you know, just for legal reasons.
Yeah.
But there's a discussion. I think Rose and I forget who else was talking about whether choosing stop or choosing to block is the better tactic. And do you know in terms of unsubscribing to emails perhaps and blocking texts, is there a recommended technique that is safer than because I'm always afraid if I hit unsubscribe, then I'm just gonna show them that I'm a real person and I'm gonna get more spam.
Right. Yeah, I just delete them. And if it's an auto dialer, to stop or whatever, as I mentioned earlier, if you respond with, respond with stop to it so you don't get any more of these messages. Well, if it's a scam call or text, then you're just telling them that this is an active number that they can sell.
Yeah.
Or come back to you again with something else. So, I just delete them. It's political conversation. You don't know. I just delete them and move on.
Yeah, or emails, depending on who your email service is. So if you're using Microsoft or if you're using Gmail, if you're using most of the other new ones, you can take an email and drag it into the junk folder, or often have a right click and report as junk. In either case, the email server will then remember those and throw all the next ones into junk for you. So you can sort of train it with I don't want to hear about this. Which just doesn't stop it, but it slows it down. You still got to check your junk email every now and then because some things get in there that you actually want.
Yeah, it's like checking your spam. Every once in a while, there's something in there you were actually waiting for.
Yeah. Well, I send myself emails, and oftentimes they go to junk. So I guess that's saying something about me. Kevin is mentioning locking down your browser security settings. Andy, do you have any thoughts on that? Can you lock down your browser to make yourself more safe?
So I'm not aware of locking down. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I am aware of choosing a browser that is more secure than other browsers. There are browsers that are focused on privacy and security. And I won't name names here, but I will say that if you choose your favorite search engine and do a search for privacy-focused and security-focused browsers, they prevent a bunch of things. And then if you really want to get technical, if you you can also change your DNS server, your domain name server, to something like 9.9.9.9, as opposed to if you go to Comcast or Xfinity, they all say, oh, just use this domain name server, and they let everything go through. There are servers that automatically for you filter out malware sites. So you try to go to a malware site and you won't get there because your domain name server says, no, I don't think so. It's probably the easiest malware block there is. And any browser will tell you how to change it. The one I mentioned, 9.9.9.9, is called Quad 9, and there are others that do that as well.
So Andy, if I wanted to do that, how do I do that? Because I have Firefox, which I have all my security settings all set super strict, and always checking my email and my security on my desktop computer real strict. But how would I how would I do that?
Well, you have two choices, really. One would be to change it at your router, and that way everything that hooks up to your router. So if you have a normal configuration, you'd have cable coming in or fiber coming in, and then you got this box. That box you can usually log into. And in that box, you can usually set up, if you're using Wi-Fi, you can usually set up the Wi-Fi parameters, and one of them will have the domain name server. If you're using Xfinity, it'll be 75.75.75.75, which is, and by the way, this is a privacy issue because it means that Xfinity gets to see every search you do. Oh, where'd you go? They get to go see all that. So that's one of the reasons I don't like it. You can change it right there, and that way everything that hooks up to your Wi-Fi will automatically be using a more secure DNS. Or you can go and change it directly on your computer, and you go into the internet settings, and you'll see DHCP, and you'll see automatically, it'd be something along the lines of automatically select your DNS server. And you can say, no, I want to set it manually. And that'll be for that computer. So you can control that yourself. And there are any number of YouTube videos, websites that'll talk you through all of that. It's basically looking at DNS or domain name server to block malware.
Okay.
And it's a very easy, free way of stopping a whole bunch of nonsense.
Okay.
We're coming to the end of our time, so if you have a question, put it in the chat real quick and we'll try and get to it. But we've got one more from Marie Claire, and she says, for unknown group text, do you leave the group and then block, or do you archive it so you can go back and check where it's come from? What would your advice be there?
Yeah, unknown group data, leave the group and then block it or archive it. If it's something that's unknown, this is what I do. And I don't know if it's, maybe archiving it in some fashion securely is not a bad thing. But if I have an unknown text, whether it's a group text or that I either check it out right then and decide, is it valid? I'm going to file it in my folders in my email. Or if I don't think it's valid and I want to look at it and I don't want to look at it, I'll delete it right there. But if I think it's valid, I'll save it to investigate. But that's kind of the key, isn't it? Is it valid? If I have suspicions, I don't want it to sit in my email, even if it's just going to sit there and nothing's going to happen. I really don't want to have it sitting in my email, because there's a pretty good chance with all the emails I get every day, I'm going to forget about it. And it's just going to sit there. So I'll delete it right away. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer to that, Andy. That's one of those cyber type questions. Is that a risk to have something you're not sure about just sitting there? I like to get them out of there.
There's no risk to having it sit there. There's no risk to deleting it. The only risk is when you respond to it, because your phone will then recognize, as soon as you respond to a text, your phone, at least the iPhone, I'm not sure about Android, will then recognize that is a valid source. So delete or do nothing are both way better options.
Okay. Makes sense.
All right. Well, we are coming up to the end of our time. We have filled the hour, as we kind of always do. I will say I see a couple of messages about DNS strings, and I have to say that just makes my head explode. I have had email problems with a certain provider and had to put in those strings. So like if you're looking at those numbers and going, I don't know what those are and I hate them, I join you in that sentiment, but I'm glad to have Andy and other people on the call who know what that means. But when you're getting into like programming your router and stuff, if you are confused and frustrated by that, I'll raise my hand and join you. But that's part of what we're trying to do here, is translate some of that stuff to make it actionable and easy. But anyway, that just kind of took me back to a hardware problem I had a long time ago that kind of re-traumatized me. So anyway, we're going to wrap it up for this month. Next month, we have been talking about our topic being fraud and cognitive decline in regards to your loved ones, when they could be vulnerable to fraud. Romance scams especially are huge in that regard, but also bank scams, stock scams, crypto scams are exploding on like our older audience where people get drawn into crypto. And of course, I don't understand crypto very well, but if you're, older and suffering from cognitive decline, it's very easy to be drawn in by scammers who have techniques to get older people to buy crypto and then transfer it out of the country. It's just so insidious. So Kay has been looking into this, and I think that might be a good topic for next month. Kay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the idea being how can we protect our loved ones who are suffering from any form of cognitive decline? How can we better protect them from fraud? How can we talk about that with them? What can we share with them that might help them? And what can we do, maybe even physically, in terms of reminders and notes and scripts by the phone to follow, that type of thing. So Monday, I'm at a conference with a well-known professor from University of Southern California who specializes in this. And we'll be getting some more information about how cognitive decline, which, I know that all of us have considered at some point in time, and how can we talk about that in terms of fraud protection to make sure that our loved ones are safe. So that's what we're working on for next month, trying to put something together that would be very helpful for you, our audience, to actually put into use.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that's, been around forever. I mean, I managed my dad's bank accounts when he got older, and that was long before the internet even. And, there was a, like you want to make sure that your, older relatives are safe and not being taken advantage of. And as we talked about, in terms of AI, there's now a million more ways that all of us can be taken advantage of. So I think that'll be our topic. Kay is going to confirm that this week and get some more information. But in the meantime, if you'd like to register for the next event, which will be July 18th, I put a link in the chat there, but it'll also be in the email that you're going to receive that is going to contain a survey. And I know everybody gets too many surveys. I get them from the doctor and Amazon, and no, I don't want to fill out your survey. But if you fill out our survey, I promise you that Kay and I, will actually read the comments. So please make them kind. But it does help us improve these events. And there will also be links to a recording of our session here today, and that'll be available on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're on either one of those platforms, you can look for it at AARP Washington. If you just search, you'll find it. But that will be posted by tomorrow, and so there will be a link to go directly to that. And, I'd also say that I'm hearing from people who are having difficulty registering or difficulty getting into the Zoom. And if you are having trouble, we would like to know about it. And if you could send us an email at arpwa@aarp.org and just, tell us what's going on for you. And I'm going to put that in the chat, because it is it is kind of a complicated system that goes through AARP and then to Zoom and out again. So if you're having trouble, please let us know, because we want you all to be able to get in without technical challenges. I think that'll do it for June Fraud Watch Friday. Thank you for being the largest crowd we've had so far. That's fantastic. And Kay and Andy, do you have any last words?
Andy?
And nope, I think this was, I always find these really interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And me too. And Andy, I really appreciate your cyber technical expertise. Like I said, I'm kind of the fraud side of the picture with just a little bit of the cyber. But I know that there's a lot more interest in that than probably I can answer correctly anyway. So thank you for continuing to join us and helping out. And like I said, Andy's going to be your host for the August Fraud Watch Friday, so make sure you watch out for that registration and come and join. And especially bring not just your fraud questions, because Andy knows fraud too, but your cyber questions as well. And thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your attendance. And thank you for joining us for across the country. We're glad to have you, and please share this information with family and friends so we can all better protect ourselves from these frauds and these crimes.
All right. Thank you very much. See you next month.
Thank you.